The Sannin all have a reputation of great power. Konoha's legendary three ninja are some of the strongest people on the planet, at least at the beginning of the series. Time and time again, it's said that there are only three people of this caliber, and this sentiment even stretches to the Hokage himself, Hiruzen, thinking that all of his knowledge is no match for Orochimaru's talent. But within this group of three extremely close people, two constantly get compared to each other, and that's Jiraiya and Orochimaru. Which one of them holds the title of the strongest Sannin? To avoid a comment like this, I'm not talking about Boruto Orochimaru. That guy would obviously wipe the floor with Jiraiya. I'm talking about from part 1 to Naruto Shippuden, who is stronger. Just for a quick second, I'd like to talk about whether or not it makes sense for Jiraiya to be at Orochimaru's level. And speaking specifically about Naruto Part 1 here, the more that's revealed about Orochimaru and Jiraiya's past, the less and less this makes sense to me. Orochimaru had supposedly always been a genius, and not always just been a genius, but a prodigy when it comes to ninjutsu as well. Even Hiruzen, who trains them all, claims Orochimaru was a powerfully talented genius, the likes of which is only seen once every few decades. Beyond this, there are other ways we know Orochimaru is stronger than Jiraiya, or at least that's what had normally been the case. We can reasonably excuse the fight they had when Orochimaru was leaving the village because Jiraiya was Orochimaru's friend. He likely had the same type of mental nerve that Hiruzen did whenever the fight with Orochimaru started. Orochimaru says even with both of them having handicaps, it is no contest. I don't want to try to quantify the nerfs that both Jiraiya and Orochimaru had because I think that's pretty much worthless. The point of this is just that Orochimaru has the upper hand on Jiraiya yet again, and he describes it as no contest here and implies that it's always this way. Orochimaru and Jiraiya had likely fought each other only once for real, that being when Orochimaru was leaving the village, but that doesn't mean they didn't have any sparring matches or even compare their own performances out in the field during times of war. Their participation in the Third War is unknown, but they were Konoha shinobi at the time of those wars, so it makes sense they'd participate. It just seems a bit weird to me with these things in mind that Jiraiya could catch up to Orochimaru's level, especially when I consider the difference in what they do in their free time. Jiraiya does stalk the Akatsuki and Orochimaru while traveling, but it's not implied that he really trains. It's more implied that he's researching for his novels, while it's told to us that Orochimaru is constantly seeking for power and wanting to get new jutsu. So you have a more talented guy working harder at achieving strength, yet for some reason Jiraiya is able to keep up with him. The answer has to lie in Jiraiya having better training methods than Orochimaru or something, because other than that there's no real reason for Jiraiya to ever catch up to Orochimaru's level of strength. I don't want to make it sound like I'm downplaying Jiraiya's capabilities. He's clearly got a high potential ceiling. It just seemed as if Orochimaru's ceiling was even higher than that, sort of mirroring Sasuke and Naruto's relationship and the masters that would eventually train them both. With Jiraiya and Orochimaru being on a similar level, what does that mean for a fight if they're going to have one? That obviously puts us in a position where determining the outcome is going to be dependent on strategy and arsenal, and there is a way to more likely determine a winner here with everything that we know about how these two would fight. Quickly before that though, I want to talk about the comparison between Jiraiya and Orochimaru's respective fight with Four-Tailed Naruto. The fight that led so many people to think this battle is not close at all despite Orochimaru and Jiraiya's numerous statements of being on par with one another. Jiraiya versus Naruto was off-screened, but we do know certain details about the fight, the main one being Jiraiya almost died in this interaction. This is where the comparison comes in because Orochimaru did not almost die in his fight with Four-Tailed Naruto and was actually quite comparable to him, but is this really true? Taking a look back at the fight, this doesn't seem to be true at all. While yes, of course, Jiraiya got damaged by the Four-Tails, take into consideration he doesn't have a way to insta-heal the way Orochimaru does. When you take this into consideration, Jiraiya almost looks more impressive as he gets away with a scar on his chest, but Orochimaru gets cut in half by Four-Tailed Naruto swiping him with his hand. If he didn't have any regeneration, he'd be cooked right then and there. And it also has to be considered that the Nine-Tails chakra is stated to be like a poison, so Jiraiya getting hit by it would weaken him considerably, while someone like Orochimaru is stated to have resistance to poisons. It's also fair to say that Jiraiya isn't trying to harm Naruto in any way here. He's just trying to seal his chakra away again. That obviously wouldn't prevent him from dodging or reacting to Naruto, but it changes the context of the battle because no counter jutsu are being launched in order to harm him. Orochimaru does land a solid hit on Naruto, but it's when Naruto's hands are dug into the ground. And yes, while it is possible for Naruto to create chakra appendages, that is displayed for the first time in this exact fight. Before, when Naruto was in the final valley and he was still in control, all he could do was extend his reach using his already existing chakra cloak, just like the Four Tails does here, but the Four Tails making another Four Tails to attack is a new ability. Not to mention, this punch came as the result of Orochimaru doing a diversion to get in close, which speaks more to tactics rather than physical stats, but we'll talk about tactics in a bit. Other than this attack, Orochimaru is not doing well in this fight. Everything he does is getting countered, but to his credit, he's not exactly getting ragdolled either. Also, at the end of the fight, Orochimaru does carry away Naruto, or I guess pushes away Naruto using the Kusanagi sword, but not only does he say it can't pierce Naruto, the only reason the fight ends here is because of Yamato. Orochimaru says directly after this that he had reached his limit. If the fight continued even a little after this, Orochimaru would have lost. Kabuto also says that Orochimaru must have reached his limit and immediately goes to find him. So comparing the two fights, Orochimaru got saved by Yamato and did zero notable damage to Naruto, while Jiraiya fought Naruto and successfully subdued the Four Tails even though he was heavily wounded afterwards. Now, I'm not going to count this against Orochimaru because of course he is weakened at the beginning of Shippuden, having lost the power in his arms and being in a host body that he says is rejecting him, the former of which is a power he doesn't gain back until getting them out of the Reaper belly. The takeaway from either fight should just be that the Four Tails is extremely strong and dangerous, not that Orochimaru or Jiraiya are weaker than the other person. If this fight is to be used as a comparison, it should be for how their different arsenals apply in the fight. Orochimaru's healing is enough to keep him from getting one shot, but he doesn't have the capacity to stop the Four Tails on his own. But while Jiraiya doesn't have that insane healing, he has the tools necessary to subdue Kurama's chakra and survive the fight. Manda and Gemabunta are also extremely likely to play a big role in this fight, and the winner of a battle between the two of them could turn the battle heavily in the favor of the winner's summoner. Luckily for me, Kishimoto had these two fight in the original manga, so I can kind of see how a battle between them would go. Just like their summoners, these two are fairly around the same level. When it comes to physical stats, Katsuyu does seem to be a bit outclassed here, but Gemabunta manages to prevent Manda from biting down on Katsuyu, although he does get disarmed in the process. But he does evade both a tail swipe and Manda throwing his giant sword back at him by leaping out of the way, and Manda shows the ability to evade Jiraiya and Bunta's oil enhanced fire by shedding his skin. The would-be fight ending move comes next though, after Manda fakes out Bunta and Jiraiya by moving his tail up underground and actually appearing behind them. The only thing that saves them here is Tsunade appearing behind Manda and slamming Bunta's sword into the top of his snake's mouth. If the fight goes a similar way this time, then obviously you could expect Orochimaru to come out on top in this specific fight. That doesn't mean outright that Jiraiya would lose, as he still has his other summon Gamma. The databook describes Gamma as a great toad Jiraiya formed a summoning contract with using his blood. When it's summoned, it appears at any time and place and fights together with Jiraiya like an extension of his limbs. He's a reliable guy who values loyalty and puts his life on the line without hesitation if Jiraiya is in trouble. While it's clear this summon is going to be not as powerful as someone like Gemabunta is, his synergy with Jiraiya being compared to Jiraiya having an extension of his limbs still makes him a decent threat, even if just to give Jiraiya time to enter Sage Mode. I guess you could say base to base, Jiraiya would lose to Orochimaru then, since the only on-screen fight Bunta and Manda have was pretty convincingly going to be won by Manda. Orochimaru won't have time for Edo Tensei here, as there are no human sacrifices he can use for the jutsu, but he has the ability to attack from the top of Manda by using his extending Kusanagi sword if need be, giving Jiraiya way too much to deal with in just base form alone. The battle turns almost completely one-sided though whenever Jiraiya enters Sage Mode. Orochimaru has zero answers for Jiraiya's frog song genjutsu he uses with Ma and Pa. Delta Book 3 provides far more context on this jutsu, and it sounds even more busted than it was originally shown to be when Jiraiya used it against Pain. Two or more toads sing in harmony to a musical scale passed down secretly on Mount Myoboku. Those who hear it are drawn into a genjutsu world where their minds are paralyzed. Because it takes many long years of training to acquire, presently only two great sage toads can perform the jutsu. Gamma Rensho will succeed if the target is even within earshot. This particular caption proves the genjutsu is AoE, saying it will get you even if you can just hear it. They don't need to see you. Even if the target's number in the hundreds, it makes no difference. Each and every one who heard the frog song are sealed in giant clutches of a giant Gamma Fuda. The jutsu surrounds the opponent in all four directions with massive toes and seals them behind a barrier. The toes will not release their grasp until the caster gives the order. All that is left is for the caster to finish off his captives in the real world. Then, the real best statement on this page, at Mount Myoboku, there is sheet music for genjutsu recognized since ancient times. Combining lyrics and a melody that only toads can produce invokes the most powerful genjutsu. This statement does come from Data Book 3, so obviously it's not stronger than Infinite Tsukuyomi or something like that, but it's not like it has to be for it to work on someone like Orochimaru. Orochimaru got dealt with by basic Sharingan Genjutsu on two separate occasions, once by Itachi and once by Sasuke, and Itachi happened to use a Genjutsu that's within the same family of demonic illusions. Frog Song is called Demonic Illusion Gamma Rensho, and Itachi used demonic illusion shackle stakes to defeat Orochimaru all that time ago when he had joined the Akatsuki. So not only has he been bodied by Genjutsu before, he's been bodied by Genjutsu of the same variety as well. Once under the illusion, he can obviously be dealt with by a massive Rasengan or something along those lines. You might think this gets better for Orochimaru with the introduction of the 8-headed serpent, but it really doesn't make much of a difference here. For one, if Jiraiya beats Orochimaru with a massive Rasengan while he's under a Genjutsu, then there's no way for Orochimaru to even bring this jutsu out. But let's say he does manage to get it off before that, nothing about this jutsu stops Frog Song from hitting Orochimaru anyway. I've gone over that in depth, but even looking at this from a different perspective, it's hard to see what Orochimaru would do with this jutsu. The data book does call this Orochimaru's greatest and most powerful jutsu, and that it surpassed Orochimaru himself, but that's a pretty vague description. Like, what does it actually do? It is really big, but aside from what the data book says about it, this thing doesn't do anything. In the manga, it just gets beat up by Itachi. I know someone started a rumor that the serpent shook Itachi's Susanoo through the Yada mirror, but that didn't happen. Orochimaru made no meaningful progress in this fight with Itachi, which, to be fair, it is Itachi, and Itachi was wielding some pretty insane weapons. But still, he made no progress. The serpent just simply has worse statements than Jiraiya's Sage Mode, and with it offering nothing of substance to Orochimaru's arsenal, I can't reliably say it would change the battle in any meaningful way. The best I could say for it is that it's extremely large, like really big, but then Jiraiya's massive Rasengan is stated to be able to carve away a mountain. On top of that, Jiraiya is stated to be able to make these in an instant, and however big Orochimaru's 8-headed Hydra looks, it does not look to be bigger than a mountain, at least not to me. So Jiraiya's massive Rasengan should be able to tear away at it. The existence of the Master Rasengan in Sage Mode kinda makes it to where Frog Song might not even be needed for the battle. Ma and Pa don't seem all that willing to perform it when they're fighting against Pain, so an enemy even less serious than that probably isn't gonna make Ma sing at all. But to be honest, Frog Song just sort of trivializes the fight. It's a completely busted move that makes Orochimaru not even worth talking about because of his poor resistance to Genjutsu. And if Jiraiya were to start in Sage Mode with that move, there's nothing Orochimaru could do to answer for it. When it comes to their base forms, even with their comparable stats, Orochimaru's arsenal just simply makes it more likely for him to win. But that's just if you take Manda and Gamabunta's fight to be telling of how a future fight between the two of them would go, since Tsunade wouldn't be there to interfere. Once Jiraiya enters Sage Mode, the fight becomes less about strategy and more about how you could even argue Orochimaru would hang with such a monster. It is an added benefit that aside from getting an insane increase in stats, that Jiraiya gets the two most powerful Sage Toes to sit on his shoulders, but that's his arsenal, so it's fair. Gotta give it to him, so Jiraiya wins.